Hey y'all, my name is Patrick Lyons and I'm here with Major Fitness. Today I'm going to introduce to you the F22 all-in-one transformative home gym solution. Unlike some gyms, this is going to truly give you an all-in-one experience, meaning you don't have to make any sacrifices of things that you may or may not get in other home gyms. The goal of this video is to guide you through the assembly process of the F22 all-in-one home gym, and you're going to see just how simple it really is. Behind and around me, you'll see all the components you need to assemble the machine. This includes your power rack, your multi-grip pull-up bar, your 360-degree landmine, and cable pulley system. It's a super robust design, and it's a super easy assembly process that you'll see in the next steps. All right, next we're going to assemble the upright pillars to the base. So to do so, you're going to want to grab 2 bolts with a washer apiece, and then you're also going to want to grab 2 bolts and 2 washers for the other side. So effectively, the bolts and the washers are going to be loaded in from the bottom side to attach the upright pillars to, and then you're going to lock those into place with the self-locking nuts and the washers. So you can grab your upright pillar to have nearby. And then what you're going to want to do is lift the base just a couple inches up off the ground to load the bolt and washer on. So you just feed that up from the bottom through the hole, and you're going to do the exact same thing with the second bolt. And you only want to lift it up a couple inches because that's all you're going to be able to do once we get to the next steps of the process. So you have those bolts sticking up. You're going to take your upright pillar and the open slot. You want to face toward the back side of the machine. All right, once your pillar is in place on top of the bolts, you're going to feed a washer onto each of the bolts. And then to apply the self-locking nuts onto each of these bolts, you're going to want to first take the 14mm side of your wrench, attach that to the bolt on the bottom. Once that is in place, you can attach the self-locking nut, and then you'll want to do the exact same thing for the other bolt. So attach the 14mm side, make sure that you have the plastic side up for the self-locking nut, and then it is good to go. And it's totally normal for it to be leaning like this. It is held in place, and later in the process is when we're going to tighten all of the bolts into place. All right, so once you have one of your pillars assembled, then just repeat the process on the other side. And as I mentioned, totally normal for them to be leaning. They are held in place. You're just going to wait to fully tighten everything until later in the process. So next, we're going to assemble the upright reinforcements, which are going to go in the 2 corners here to basically provide extra reinforcement in the upright direction. To do so, you're going to need both types of bolts. So you're going to notice that you have both short and long bolts. The short bolts are going to go on the bottom. The long bolts are going to go side to side. So starting with the bottom ones, you're going to go through the exact same process that you just went through with the pillars. So you're going to load them in from the bottom. You'll need to lift it up a couple of inches. Like I mentioned, totally normal for the pillars to wobble and jiggle around a little bit. All right, so just like we did for the upright pillar, I have fed the bolts in from the bottom so they're facing up. Make sure they're using the shorter bolts for the bottom, and the longer bolts are going to go side to side a bit later. And you're also going to make sure you have washers and nuts for each of these sets of bolts. So you have 4 total washers, 4 total nuts, in addition to the washer that goes on each bolt feeding in from the bottom or the side. So with these bolts, we're going to put the upright reinforcement in place. And then you're going to want to put a washer over each of these. And then you're going to want to put the self-locking nuts on top of those. And again, plastic side is facing up. And then just like we did for the upright pillar, you're going to want to grab your wrench. Make sure you got the 14mm side, the smaller of the 2, and attach that to the bolt on the bottom. It'll help you tighten it into place, finger tight. Same thing on the other bolt. All right, so once those are finger tight. You're gonna wanna take the pillar, make sure that it is able to get flush with your reinforcement, and you're gonna feed the longer bolts through each of these holes. And then same concept with these, we're gonna put the washer over each of the bolts. And the self-locking nut, this time the plastic portion is gonna be facing inside. So it's still on the top of the actual bolt. And as with all of the bolts, we're just getting this to a point of being finger tight. We're going to tighten everything fully into place later on. So you're still gonna have some wobble, but now the upright reinforcement is holding everything in place. And then you're just gonna repeat that exact same process on the other side. For the next step to assemble the upright pillar tubes to the base that we've already assembled, you're gonna wanna start with the plates. So you have 2 plates that are gonna go on either side of the base, like so. And basically you're gonna wanna line up the holes in the corners with the holes on either side of this foot of the base. And then what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna take a bolt and a washer, feed it through from the outside. And again, you wanna make sure it's lined up with the holes. And this is what's going to feed all the way through and basically intersect with the other plate. So you're gonna do this on both sides. All right, so once you've fed both of the bolts through, then you should be able to pretty well line it up with the other plate. And at that point, you can feed in another washer on each of these bolts. And then you're gonna wanna take the self-locking nut. As always, the plastic piece going to be facing out. And once you have those loosely in place, what you can do is basically hold it in place from the other side. So basically with the bolt, you have one finger on one side holding it in place, and that way the self-locking nut can actually lock. Cool. So now this is at least loosely in place. It doesn't have to be fully in place, and it shouldn't be fully locked in place, but that's going to provide the support that we need to put the upright pillar tube in its position. To make sure that we have the right orientation, make sure you're looking at which side has the numbers, and those numbers are going to be facing toward the user in this direction. This can feed right between those plates, and basically you're trying to line up the holes on either side of the upright pillar tube with the holes on the plates. And then you'll take a bolt with a washer and you will feed that through. This one might take a little bit of trial and error to get it all the way through, because you're now basically going through 4 different holes. So no worries if that takes a couple of tries. All right, now once you have both bolts all the way through, both plates and the pillar, you basically do the exact same thing you've just done with all the other bolts. So you're loading on a washer and then a self-locking nut. And now that should be at least enough in place that you can let go of it, but you'll want to probably again grab each side, each bolt, and just finger tight those nuts, and then you have a intentionally wobbly structure before we get to the point where we will fully tighten everything in later in the process. Then you'll just take everything you just did and repeat the process on the other side, so you have both of the upright pillar tubes, also known as accessory or bar stop tubes. Next, we're going to install the first bit of the cable pulley system to the upright pillar that we just installed. To do so, you're first going to want to remove the nut from the pulley bit. And then for the adjustment knob, you're going to want to remove the actual knob so that we don't scrape anything on the way down when we're installing this. So you're going to load this in from the top. Then once you have it to about your own eye level, so you can just comfortably put this back in place, put that knob in hole. And then once you have that in place, it should be able to actually lock into place. So once you have that there, you're going to take the cable pulley bit, which again, it was already on there with the bolt, the washer on each side, and the nut. And so what you're going to want to do here is install this onto the rest of the setup. So to do so, you're actually going to need to remove the washer and bolt between the two holes. So to get this into place, what you're going to need to do is position the washer to be rather low on the bolt, otherwise it won't have clearance. And then you can get it all the way through the different holes. And once you have that there, you can just install the washer and nut. All right, and then you have a functioning pulley system that can go up and down. So you're gonna wanna basically do exactly this on the second side, and then we can proceed to the next step. Next, we're going to assemble the topmost part of the frame, the cable pulley frame, to the rest of the machine. So to do so, you're gonna wanna make sure that the bolts are facing outward and that the curved part is at the back of the machine. You'll also be able to tell pretty easily that one part is clearly higher than the other and one part of your frame is higher than another. Watch your fingers on this one. So you're gonna wanna make sure that your hands are well out of the line of clearance. And you're basically gonna slide it onto the back. And you're basically going to be getting the cable pulley to fit into the slot on the frontmost pillar like so. And then you're basically going to put the pillar flush with the rest of the top part of the frame, and then we're gonna bolt that into place. For the next step in the process, you're gonna take the Y plate, as shown here. Notice that there is a curved side and a rougher side. You're gonna wanna make sure that that curved side is facing outward. You're only going to put a bolt and a washer through the center hole for now. That is specifically going to go through this hole at the top of the upright beam. And that's going to hold that in place for now. And from there, you are going to grab the multi-grip pull-up bar. And what you'll notice is that it has the exact same Y shape as the Y plate that we just loaded on. And that is because the screw, rather the bolt, is going to go into this exact hole. Notice that that's where the threading is, and that's what's going to be attached. So what you will want to do at this point in the process is have a friend or an assistant of some sort to put this into place, basically lining it up with exactly where you have that screw. And so while your friend is holding this up for safety purposes, that's when you will actually go and screw it the rest of the way in. Next, we're going to assemble the crossbar to the frame that we have already in place. To do so, you're going to want to grab pretty much everything that you have left for this step. So that's going to be all of your washers, all of your nuts, your bolts, each with a preloaded washer on them just for easy access later, and your collars. So you can position the collars on either side, have the bolts, nuts, and washers easy access, and then of course you got your crossbar. To load the crossbar on, you're going to make sure that the letter is facing back, and what you're going to do from there is, before actually loading the crossbar on, probably going to want to preload a collar with a bolt and a washer. So it makes sense why we want to do that in just a minute. Basically, you're going to grab your crossbar, and this is going to reveal why it's so important to have things not locked into place. You need enough slack in the frame that you can do this. Basically, we are getting it to where it's now fully flush with either side of the frame. You can position that into its full position up at the top, and if you need to, you can rest part of the bar on your shoulder if your height falls that way. Otherwise, you're gonna wanna load in the collar with your bolt all the way through one of the holes. And then once you have that collar and bolt in place, your crossbar can now effectively hold on its own, at least temporarily, so that we can then go to the other side, load your collar, bolt, and washer into the other side. All right, and now, again, temporarily, but it's able to pretty much fully stand on its own. So you can grab the other bolts and washers, load those through the other holes that you have available. All right, now that all the bolts are in place, you're gonna take your washers and nuts and just one at a time, load the washer on, load the nut on. And as always, you can just hold on to one end of the bolt while you screw the nut into place. All right, and then once you have one side done, you're just gonna repeat the process on the other side. All right, and once all that's screwed in place, you can take in the fact that you're nearly at the end. Next, we got a super simple step. We're just gonna be assembling the load-bearing tubes onto the frame. So you're gonna grab one load-bearing tube per side, along with basically half of the nuts, bolts, and washers that you have. So you're basically gonna have 4 washers, 2 nuts, 2 bolts, 1 tube per side. So this is going to be assembled to the top of our frame. So we're gonna be right over here. And the whole purpose of this attachment is if you decide to, should note, you wanna preload a washer onto each bolt, as always. And the whole purpose of this attachment is basically if you decide to use resistance bands in some of your, say, barbell exercises, this will allow you to attach the resistance band to the top part of the machine, and you'll see later that we'll be able to attach it to the bottom as well. Tighten it to a point of finger tightness so it doesn't fall off. Grab yourself another 2 washers, 1 nut, 1 bolt. And as always, also make sure that your bolt heads are facing to the outside of the device, as you can see here. All right, and then you're just gonna repeat the process on the other side. All right, we're getting to the exciting part. Next, we're going to assemble the weight-bearing guide rods onto the frame. So you're gonna grab 2 guide rods per side, as well as 2 bumpers per side. So you're gonna load these into the holes on the bottom of the frame. And these are gonna lean to the side until we get the rest of the things assembled. You're gonna load one of the bumpers onto each of them. Those fall all the way down. And then you're going to grab one of your weight-bearing frames to attach to the guide rods. You're gonna make sure the pulley is on the top part. You're gonna let that fall into place at the bottom. So you'll need to lift the guide rod ever so slightly so that the hole on the exterior of the guide rod lines up exactly with the hole on this hole. And you'll basically need to hold it in place there the whole time because you aren't able to slide this screw in. This one actually has to thread all the way in from the very first turn. We'll use your Allen wrench to screw that the rest of the way in. And then once you've done that, you'll basically just do the exact same thing with the 3 other guide rods. And as always, don't tighten all the way at the onset. All right, next we're gonna load more weight-bearing tubes onto the machine. These are specifically weight plate horns. You're also gonna wanna grab a wrench, and you're gonna use the bigger side of the wrench to unscrew the screw beforehand. And you're gonna wanna remove it all the way. And then with the angling upwards, you're going to load the weight plate horn into the back side. And once it is in place, you'll just feed the washer and bolt or screw in through this side. As always, don't tighten all the way, just finger tight is totally fine for now. And then you're gonna repeat that with all 3 of the other weight plate horns. Next, we're loading even more load-bearing tubes, different kind this time. These are going to be attached to the bottom of the machine that allows for the attachment of resistance bands to the device. You're also going to grab the load-bearing pins that you will attach these tubes to the machine with. So all of these tubes should be facing the outside of the machine, like so. So they're coming to the exterior, not to the interior. And the load-bearing pin will simply go through the hole and hold it in place. And then you're just going to repeat that with the other 3 tubes. Next, we have 3 sets of attachments that we're going to assemble to the machine. So basically we have our right and left handlebar tubes, safety bars, and hooks. The thing you want to make sure of is that you note the L or the R on each one of these things, because that is going to designate whether it's the left or right side of the device. So I'm going to grab all of the L's and assemble them to the left side of the device. All right, so you get to choose the height that you load all of these onto. I'm going to load this onto 9, designated by the number 9. That way you can get the same height on both sides. And then we have the handlebar attachment. This can be used for things like dips. So you can do that at a different height, like so. And then we have the safety bar. And this is what can be used to keep you safe for pretty much all of the barbell exercises. And there you have it. We have all 3 attachments, and then we'll just load them on to the other side, all at the same height. Next, we're going to assemble the final portion of the cable pulley assembly. So you're basically just going to take these 2 cable pulley attachments, and you're going to use one as a reference because we have to disassemble one to attach it to the machine. So basically, you're going to want to keep it in this orientation where the bolt is facing the exterior. But like I said, we got to disassemble one of them. Fully disassemble it, and then what we're going to do is have a washer and a bolt that's going to feed through from the exterior. And then, like I said, you want to keep this orientation in mind. So what this means is we need to load a spacer on, and then you're going to load the actual pulley. And again, referencing back to this as your guide, you'll basically put a spacer on the other side as well, the other side of the actual pulley. All right, now that we've finished assembling the final bit of the cable pulley assembly on this side and repeated on the other side, we can now get to the actual cables that will make our cable pulley assembly fully functional. So you're going to take this end of the cable, so not the ball, but the other end. You're going to feed it up through the middle of these 2 cable pulleys, and you're going to want to make sure throughout this entire process that you're in line with the actual pulley, and so you're not on either side of it, but going across kind of that soft part in the middle. And then you're going to go up over the top. So notice there's 2 pulleys on the top. The wire will feed across the top of both of those, come all the way down to this pulley. Then when you come back up, you're going to go across both of the second layer, so across the top of those, come back down to that final cable pulley bit that you just assembled, and then attach it to the frame on the 5 holes, one of the 5 holes here. All right, so we finished assembling the cable pulley system, and note that the cable is attached to the 4th hole from the bottom. There are 5 holes. You want to be in the 4th hole from the top or 2nd from the bottom, either way. And then another pro tip is there's a slot here at the back, but no cables should be going in or out of that. All of the cables will go in this area. But you have a fully functioning cable pulley system now. All right, your F22 all-in-one home gym is pretty much fully assembled now. Be sure to tighten all the nuts, bolts, and screws to secure your machine in place before we get to the accessories. But on that note, accessories. So the guide that you have will show the cable handles, which of course you can use, and we will. You also have the option for the lat pull-down attachment, the tricep attachment, and the straight bar. Now let's attach the cable handles. Basically, the carabiner is just going to insert through the hole of each side of the cable pulley system. And then your machine is good to roll. So fully functioning cable pulley system, all you have to do now is load plates onto the system to add load to your exercises. All right, now that your F22 is fully assembled and functional, we've installed the major fitness header as well as the 4 hooks. These are more of accessory hooks to hang things on, but certainly a useful part of your full F22. Congratulations, you finally finished assembling your F22 all-in-one home gym. Hope you enjoyed the process as much as I did. Just remember throughout the process to only tighten things to finger tight with the nuts, bolts, and screws, and then at the very end of the process you can tighten things all the way so it gets to that most structurally stable point possible. For everything else, be sure to refer to your guide for guidance throughout the entire process. Hopefully you'll notice now just how strong and stable this thing is. It's again made of 14 gauge steel construction. It's an incredible device, and it has safety features built in like the safety bars and the hooks, so you're completely safe to work out all on your own. So to learn some of those, click the link in the description to see the workouts on our website. Also, check out some of our other YouTube videos. They're all great, and you'll learn even more about the F22.